Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today. Live Music Nation podcast. I'm your host, Jake Gill. Today we are with Dave Margulies. He's with the High Sierra Music Festival. Today he's in San Diego. I'm in Kansas. Dave, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, well, today, beautiful day here in San Diego.
Dave, give us a little background on you. Where did you grow up? Talk about your private career, and then talk about your position and your history with the festival.
Sure. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and grew up in New Jersey. Went to Tulane University, where I got my start in the music world. Worked at the college radio station there for years, doing live broadcasts at places like Tipitina's in New Orleans. From there, worked with a legendary New Orleans band called the Radiators for a couple of years. Toured with them and did radio promotion for them with the independent record that the band had put out. Then I moved to New York and worked with the CMJ, which was the College Media Journal back then, which was a radio trade magazine that chronicled everything that was played nationally on all college radio stations, and put charts together with that, so the record industry could get an idea of what was happening on college and alternative radio. I did that for a bunch of years, and then from there I moved on to do A&R at Sony Music. I was a regional director based in San Francisco for Sony Music for a few years. Did some artist management with a band called Consolidated, and then eventually moved over to the music festival side of things and began co-producing music festivals with my current partners at High Sierra back in 1995, and I've been doing that pretty exclusively ever since.
What was the reason for music festivals?
What was the reason for music festivals as a whole?
So your transition from radio and promotion and working specifically with bands, what made you want to do a festival?
I had been going to festivals as a fan.
Yeah.
And that was really my favorite thing to do. So I had been going to things like the Bumbershoot Festival in Seattle, the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival in New Orleans, the Newport Folk Festival. So anytime I could, live music was my passion. So anytime I could go to an event that had a lot of it, I was down. And so I used to actually go to the High Sierra Music Festival as a patron before I became involved as a co-producer. It just so happened that the opportunity worked out that they were looking for somebody to come in and join them, and I jumped at the chance.
How does I have two experience questions for you. Number one, how did your experience as an attendee of these events help in your production of a festival? Let's start with that.
Great question. Because really, we're in the hospitality business. We put on a music festival, but it's all about the patron experience, right? So if you go as a patron, then it's like working owning a restaurant and being a waiter first, or being the maitre d' first. To do all those positions, you understand how to run your restaurant a lot better when you've been in that position. Being a patron, and knowing how I like to be treated and knowing what I like to experience helps me as a producer, because and my partners share the same philosophy that it's all about the patron experience. So
now
it was kind of natural.
No, that makes sense. Now, from the other aspect, your history and your career of working on the radio side, and then also working directly with bands and live entertainment and those providers, how does that help you as a producer of a festival?
Well, again, in the same kind of way. I mean, radio, not so much, because radio has really changed and shifted, and radio was never, aside from the left side of the dial, radio was never really about artist discovery, right? So a big part about what we do is artist discovery, and that was what my role in the record company, and even in the radio trade magazine was highly about discovering new artists and creating opportunities and awareness about new artists. So we do that very diligently at High Sierra. It's a big part of what we do. We're always out in front of of a trend or a wave or a popular artist. I mean, we book, someone like a Gary Clark before he becomes popular and blows up, or whoever it might be, the Lumineers, or you name it. I mean, we've had a lot of these acts, and that's what we do as sort of A&Ring our music festival, right? We get out ahead of these acts before they're popular, because we're a small mid-sized festival. We're 5 to 10,000 people on the events that we do. So we don't have $1 million budget for one artist to come play at a 50,000 person festival, right? So we have to be really, really savvy about what we do and who we book. And so we just use our ears and try and get out in front of it. And we've been doing it, for 31 years. But on the artist side, High Sierra, especially, we do 3 festivals. We do a bluegrass Americana festival on the East Coast with Del McCoury and his family. It's called Del Fest. We do that every Memorial Day. We do one in Northern California around Halloween weekend. It was called the Hangtown Halloween Ball, and now it's called Hangtown Festival. And now we're going to be rebranding it because we moved venues. And our flagship is High Sierra Music Festival that takes place 4th of July weekend. So with all of our events, they're really, it's artists fest. It's a musicians festival, right? So these musicians come, some of the greatest relationships of their lives have been formed at festivals like ours, because they get to land for several days. Usually they're just crisscross touring the country, right? So they won't ever get a chance to land with some of these artists that they have a sort of simpatico with. Yeah. But at High Sierra, they'll get a chance to do exactly that. They'll be able to sink in for a couple of days. We do a big part of what we do is we encourage sit-ins and sort of cross-pollination, if you will, collaboration of artists. So it's a great opportunity for a lot of like-minded artists to get together and hang. And so it's in a large part of what we do. It's an artists festival, musicians festival.
What are some of the advantages of an attendee, a ticket holder, going to a festival? You're going to call your festival small and mid-size versus a larger 50 to 100,000. What are some of the advantages that a festival attendee that are listening to this right now are going to get at your festival they may not get at larger events?
Well, first of all, you're not going to get like large Coca-Cola bottles in the middle of our music meadow, right? The sponsors that we work with are intentional, and they're more mom and pop, if you will, rather than the mega corporations, right? Like for instance, our main beer sponsor is Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. It's not Budweiser, right? Things like that. So there's a value, there's an aesthetic, there's a lifestyle alignment that happens with High Sierra and all the partners that we bring in, because they're the companies that choose to support what we do are also embraced organically by the patrons that we have. It's also, we like to call ourselves the ultimate intimate festival experience, right? So we're a smaller footprint. We do our events at county fairgrounds. And so what we do is we transform the fairgrounds into this village for 3 or 4 days, right? And it just becomes everybody brings their best. Theme camps happen. People really take it to heart, and there's a way to High Sierra. There's a way to do the festivals the way we do them, and there's no written rules about it. It just happens organically, and so you're not walking, 3/4 of a mile to get from stage to stage. It's all contained. We have 3 main stages during the day. We have our vaudeville tent, we have our big meadow tent, and we have our grandstand tent, and they're not all that far from each other. We have a lot of unique programming. We have I curate a stage that we call the play shop stage, which are collaborative sets or theme sets or tribute sets or unique one-of-a-kind performances that you won't get at other festivals. We also have a really big kids area program, And one of the great things about our festival, we have professional childcare people who come in. They're called the Rockin' Nannies, and they have a whole camp set up. And if you have, let's say you have a young toddler and mom and dad want to go out on a date night, the Rockin' Nannies take over one of our indoor buildings, and they set up basically a childcare with movies and popcorn and games for kids, and it's basically babysitting. So if the kid, you don't want to schlep your kid around in a wagon around the festival at 11 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night or even 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's professional childcare where you can go ahead and drop off your kid, and the kid will be with other kids and in a safe, exciting play area. And then we have programming for kids too. We've always done that. So it's a family oriented festival. And I know kids that have grown up in High Sierra who are now in their 20s.
Yeah.
And they're High Sierra kids, just like the way some kids are for the Oregon Country Fair, perhaps. Just these cultural.
Man, you guys, that's awesome. You guys have thought of everything. That's spectacular. Dave, what are some of the benefits that you have seen over the years of bringing, I call it community, like minds, like interests together for a weekend? What are some of the long-term benefits you've seen from that?
Oh man, the relationships that form, the community, like you said, the community that's formed. Yeah, I mean, it's music brings people together, and what a better thing for us, and even especially today, with what we've gone through as a society in the last couple of years. We need music, we need good times, we need excuses to gather, right?
Absolutely.
And so our festivals have always served as a great opportunity for that.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of this new thing called Chat GTP, but it's a new.
I sure have.
Server. I've messed with it I've actually written 2 songs with it in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A song with my daughter in 30 minutes. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I bet it was a great song too.
I was a little nervous about it, but I asked it a simple question about a month ago, and I said, "What are the benefits of? What are the health benefits? Show me the research studies of social interaction." And give me 10 examples, and it spit them out in a heartbeat. And it was crazy. The incidence of cancer decreased based on the level of social interaction that people have. Heart disease, cardiovascular disease, stroke decreased, blood pressure decreased, type 2 diabetes decreased. Just in people, we all feel good at these events. Like, these events are like, we're there for the music and we're there for the friends, but we're finding out that there's so much more. And I think you touched on it with COVID, the people who completely isolated themselves versus the people who still had some social interaction but were cautious about it. The differences in health right now that we're seeing is tremendous. It is just utterly tremendous. There's so much going on, getting people together and doing what you're doing, Dave. It's so much deeper than just.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, all of it. I mean,
absolutely. Dave, I asked these. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I
ask these 2 questions at every interview because I am in live entertainment. What is the best concert you've ever seen your entire life?
That would have to be Pink Floyd, the Animals tour, 1977, Madison Square Garden. I was second row center on the floor as a 17-year-old teenager, experiencing one of the larger than life bands in the world, in one of the larger than life venues on the planet, in one of the larger than life tours they ever did. And it was just, it was with the flying pigs overhead. And I mean, it was, now they've got, with shows and technology and so on, what you could do. But in 1977 at Madison Square Garden, what they did, and you're in there with Pink Floyd and looking up and seeing the pigs, and it was probably the most impactful, impressive show that I've ever seen.
Dead or alive, you could bring one act to the High Sierra Music Festival, money's not an issue, dead or alive, who would you bring for your patrons?
Oh, man, you know, not that he's my favorite artist of all time by any means, but I think for the excitement that he would bring to the festival and the jaw-dropping expressions of people collectively, I'd have to say Hendrix.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
what he would do, he would have just burned that stage down, and people would have been just blown away. And as I said, not that Hendrix is my favorite artist of all time, but for a one-time performance, like for our people who are so passionate about and so appreciative of mega talent, like it would have to be him.
For sure. Dave, how do people find out not only about the High Sierra Music Festival and all the other festivals that you do? How do they find that information?
So our website is highsierramusic.com.
Okay.
And there's also delfest.com for our East Coast Festival, but highsierramusic.com. We're also, all over Instagram and Facebook as well. There's a community page that our patrons participate in. There's also an official page for the festival, but we've got a great website, and all the festival information is there.
Dave, thank you so much for what you do for live entertainment for decades, man. Thank you so much for being on with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle